I called up on a Wednesday night. We were in New Haven. We finished the game, and my coach came over and said, "You're going to Buffalo." Now, take a look at the map. It's a long goddamn way from New Haven to get to Rochester, then even further to get to Buffalo. So we stroll in at like 3 a.m, whatever it was, 4 a.m. I get a little sleep. Now I'm all wired up. I'm going to get called up and walk into the room and look around. These guys have already kind of clinched the division title, but a couple guys were hurt or getting rested. But we start the game. Buffalo's a good team, right? And then they start taking it to us a little bit. And near the end of the second period, Graves, who works the bench all by himself, there's no other help there, he comes down to me and he says, "What happened to you? You college commie." I said, What do you mean, Graves? He said, "Hit somebody. Will you hit somebody?" So I tried to hit somebody. I was going out of my way to hit somebody. Sure enough, next period, he comes back down the bench and says, "What happened to you? You college commie hit somebody." And I thought he was my guy. I thought he was going to love me. So they sent me back right after the game.
Oh, what a kick in the dick.
It was. And then I got a call the next day right away that they needed me back in Toronto. So I get to Toronto and all the guys have gone to the track, Cheevers and Cashman. When you go to the track, they don't just bet, they drink. So I was nowhere near them, and I went around the corner to the hotel to the bar, and all of a sudden at like 6:30, 7 o'clock, they all come in, and they're all like 3 sheets to the wind. It was just, I couldn't believe it night before a game. And it was, "Get over here, Milbury, sit down with us." I moderated my intake of alcohol at the time, but I went to take a leak, and somewhere around that time, Cashman picked up a chair and smashed it over a table. And the owner knew that Graves was staying at the hotel next door. So when I came back, there's only a couple of guys left, but in he walks Don Cherry. And I couldn't believe it, which is before 11 o'clock, but it was close to curfew time. And all the way back, was like 3 other guys with me. All the way back to the hotel, all he says is, "Goddamn rookie, hanging on by a thread. Goddamn rookie, can't believe this is how you treat me after I get you called up." So anyway, big meeting the next day. He walks around pissed off at some of the veterans, and then he comes to me and says, "How many beers did you have, Milbury?" I said, "I think I had 2," which was not going to work for him. He actually chuckled at that. So that night we're playing the Leafs. And I got into a scrap with Pat Boutet. He's not a really big guy, but he started the fight. And I split him open for a half dozen. And I skate back to the penalty box. I serve my time. And I get back to the bench, and there's Graves with his hands on his hips, looking just pissed off. He said, "What did you do that for?" I said, "What do you mean, Don?" He said, "You just made me come in my nice new brown suit."
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So then I stuck with the team then, and we went to the playoffs and played LA Kings. And I wasn't a regular at first, but then Dallas Smith got hurt. So of course the night before the game, where does everybody go again? They go to the track. But I'll never forget it, because up in the stands there was Farrah Fawcett, and I thought, "Oh my God, look at that." It's a different world for me. And first of all, we flew first class, where you got a meal and a sundae afterwards. It was just like, this is died and gone to heaven. But I will give the guys credit. They knew Dallas was out, and they knew I was going to have to play. And LA had the Triple Crown line. They were good. They were a good, tough team to play against. And we were down already 2-1. And sure enough, in the first period, we took 2 penalties, and we're down 5-on-3. We killed some of it, and then he taps me on the shoulder to go kill 5-on-3. I said, "You've got to be kidding me. I don't really need that responsibility." But we played it pretty well, blocked a big shot by Marcel Dion, and we went on to win the game. And I never went back.
No shit.
And you're like, hey, because of Farrah Fawcett, I came in my pants too, Donnie. We got a lot in common here.
Hey, when you said he ran the bench alone, like, how was he able to tell which D up were next and which forward line, considering they're changing at different times?
No, he worked it, and if he wanted a particular guy out there, he shouted it out. And, we had a pretty good rotation. First of all, we didn't use 3 sets of defensemen all that much. It was usually rotating 4 guys, and then once in a while, penalty or whatever, they'd fit in the third pairing. But that was a time when you had a minute and 30-second shift wasn't unusual. Not like today's penny-waste 30 seconds and off.
Was he as big of a presence? Was he as big of a presence back then? Just like when he was on television.
He was unbelievably fun to play for. I mean, it was just sometimes. I mean, it's hard to put him in a box, but I'll tell you one thing he did. He made me drive into practice, pregame practice, and on the way in, he'd practice his pregame speeches on me. So I'm driving in with the coach. I'm only in my second year here. It's a little bit odd to be seen driving in like I'm sucking up to the coach all the time, but I had no choice. We lived down the street from one another, and he'd come and pick me up. And then on the way home, after practice, we'd stop at the Kowloon's Chinese restaurant, where he would order for himself and his wife and 2 kids, takeout orders. He'd have 2 Budweisers, and then he'd order spare ribs to go for he and I'd eat on the way home in the car, just flipping them out the window after we're done. I mean, it was too much. But by the time I got to the game, I knew everything he was going to say. But I will tell you the weed story. A lot of our trips into Boston, we're on Route 1, and it's 2 lanes in each direction with a little middle barrier in between. So on one of these trips in, he says to me, look at that weed, Mike, growing out there right in the middle of the highway. So I'm right on the side of the barrier. That's that weed. And he just kept talking about it every time we went in. That weed's got character. That weed could be a brewer. And then one day we were going in, and you know what they do with the highways in the spring? They clean them up, right? They bring the cleaning crews out, and they brush everything away. And he said, Mike, the cleaning crews are out. We got to save the weed. You got to save the weed for me. So he pulls over on this really busy highway going into Boston. It's the main road going in. And I had to run across the highway, pull out the weed by its roots, dodge traffic, get back in the car. He races to the nearest gas station, wraps it in newspaper and wets it and takes it home and puts it in his garden. So I asked it to him 2 weeks later. I said, how's the weed doing? Is it, did it recover from that, transplant? He said, I don't know. We went on a road trip and Rose was cleaning the garden out and she threw it out. But he made me stop and get it. Son of a gun.
What an interesting guy. How many times did you talk him out of saying something in a pregame speech? And what do you think made him gravitate towards you? Was it just the fact that you were a scrappy player?
He only wanted scrappy players. I mean, you think of the teams that I was on at the beginning, you can probably pull up the roster there. I mean, Secord was on him, and Jonathan was on it, and Cashman was on it, and Wensink was on it, O'Reilly was on it. I mean, this was loaded for bear. I mean, this was our breakout play was this. Hit it up the wall, and our forwards will run through their defensemen. And then when we get it to the neutral zone, we'll dump it in. 2 men on the puck, 3rd man high, and don't get caught on your pinches. That was the system. That was all there was. And you were expected to smash into every human being that you could possibly smash into. And you weren't ever to turn away from a fight. You guys must have seen the Wensink deal.
When
he challenged
like
the Minnesota bench.
North Stars,
I was standing right beside him. I'm thinking to myself later, what are you doing, you idiot? Get out of here. But John was tough. I mean, he said he had a fight in the minor leagues once, and he said, Mike, I had my finger behind his eyeball. I could feel cords back there. And I said, should I pull it out or not? And he said, I just decided I shouldn't, but that was the day and age. That's how he made it. He made it because Grapes loved him. He was tough.
It's hard to move on from Grapes, man.
I know.
Is there one more that you got in you? Like one more Grape story? People love hearing this shit.
I would have loved to seen him after that. Well, not, I guess, love to, but just after that goal by Lafleur, right? What was that, 78?
79.
79,
we played,
Jesus Christ.
In my first 3 years, we played in the finals against the Canadians. First year, lost in 4 games. Now, they had 9 Hall of Famers on that team. Literally half the roster was a future Hall of Famer. And they beat us 4 games in a row in the first year. The second year, they beat us 4 games to 2. And then, of course, we meet them in the third year. This is the semifinals now. The winner was going to play the Rangers, which is a foregone conclusion. Who would win that series. And we're 2.5 minutes from the finish line, up by a goal, and too many men on the ice. It was 14 seconds of too many men on the ice. And the reason why it happened is that Marcotte was shadowing Lafleur, and the left wings got confused, and he went through 2 shifts, and the second winger didn't realize he wasn't going to be able to get on a shift. And anyway, who cares? Lafleur gets a drop pass from Jacques Lemaire, and he rings it off the post past Gilles Gilbert, who was just brilliant in that game. I mean, I think 50 saves or something like that. But the winner was scored by Yvon Lambert. If you ever get a chance to see the game, I hit him so hard in the first period, he'd still be in concussion protocol today. I mean, that's where the end boards were just like a rock. And I crushed him. I cheated over on my partner, was kind of riding him into the wall, and he never saw me coming, and I just crushed him. Who gets the goal in overtime? Freaking Lambert.
He was driving the net, right?
Score. What's that?
He drove the net, right? And got like a through the crease pass?
Yeah. Mario Tremblay fed. Parkey didn't have his man there. But I mean, Grapes would do things like, we were in Atlanta, won a game in Atlanta, and he'd go out with the guys all the time, right? So it's closing time. You don't have that much time after a game. It's just it's like 1 o'clock. And but his favorite song, I don't know what the hell it was, comes on. And the owner comes over, or the manager comes over and says, "You guys have to leave now." And Grapes said, "No, I just gonna leave. I'll leave after my song is over." He said, "I'm gonna get my bouncer. He knows karate, and he's gonna come out and start doing damage." So out comes this Chinese American. Is that cool off? Can I get away with that? Or is there some other terminology? Tell me if I slip again, please.
Let's send it upstairs. Yeah, we're good. Video review, we're good.
Toronto says okay.
Yeah.
Actually, Toronto would say no way.
Yeah.
So Al Secord
NBC's waving it off.
Al Secord goes up to him and just bang, 1 stiff left, and down he goes. And then we all laughed and left the bar after the song was over. Nobody got arrested. And there was another night where we couldn't win in Montreal, so we took all the defensemen out drinking the night before. We got beat 7-3 the next night. He came in and said, "Well, at least we tried, boys."
Tried to hit the reset button.
Oh shit.
Oh my God.
Just for our classic old school stories.
Oh, I love this shit.
Grapes is Don Cherry. For listeners who might not be aware, Mike, so when he get fired, was the team pissed off or had his time ran out? What was the reaction?
Well, we could all see it coming. It got ridiculous. He and Harry were friendly for a while, and then they just split, because I'm not sure how the split developed to the point where, they were hardly talking. In fact, Harry pulled me aside one time going to Montreal in one of those series, in the last series, and started to talk to me about penalty killing. And so I get on the bus, and Harry goes somewhere else, and Grapes comes up to me and says, "What are you doing talking to that fucking guy?" I said, he's the general manager. What do you want me to do? I said, "Goddamn general manager." But it escalated to the point where it was pretty obvious that they weren't going to carry on. I don't know if they offered him a contract or not, but it certainly wouldn't have been reflective of the success we had in the 3 years that I was there with him. I can remember having everybody. He had everybody over at his house, and it was like a week. Nobody wanted to see him go, and nobody knew what was going to happen next. And poor Fred Creighton, one of the good guys in hockey, came in, and he was gone before the end of the season. But it was going to be tough to replace Grapes, whoever you were.
As far as Grapes' suits, were they always as obnoxious and big like that? And did you ever ask him what the backstory was as to why he did it?
He was always a dandy, and he said he always had tons of cologne on. You could smell him coming. And he just said, look sharp, feel sharp, Mike. Look sharp, feel sharp. But he was always decked out, always. But what made him a great coach, I think, was his ability to communicate. I mean, he made you feel special. Even the Black Aces, he hang around with them. There weren't any other coaches. Somebody had to hang around with him. But they, then they'd go out to lunch and they'd feel like they were part of the group. And once in a while, he found a dog to whip. Dwight Foster was one of those guys. He just needed a whipping dog, and poor Dewey was a pretty good player, but just couldn't get out of his doghouse. But the rest of us had those simple rules, and he was a great guy to play for.